All right, good morning. Today is Wednesday, the 21st of September. I sent you all an email earlier this morning that said today we'll be going over some C# array programs that I have written myself. So we're going to do a few of them. Tomorrow, I'm going to go over some of the assigned homework and lab problems. And then Friday will be a lab. On Friday, I will also email you the pretest for chapter 8, the array pretest, and you will have until 9:30 in the morning on Monday to work on that. And then at 9:30, as I typically do, I'll spend about 2 hours going over the pretest. And then Tuesday of next week, all right, will be your hands-on test. And finally, as it says in here, please remember that all the chapter 8 work is not due until 11:59 or really midnight on Sunday the 2nd. So you really have, if you're up to date on the homework, you have no homework that's due this week. Now, I do want to mention one other thing. All right. And I'm going to allow this even though I really don't like it. And that is, I got an email from a student yesterday who said, okay, if I bombed an assignment, can I redo it and return it back in and get some points? And yes. Now, if that happens, you have to send me an email once you've updated an assignment and let me know what the assignment is and make sure it's out on your GitHub repo, because I don't, after I've graded something and it's in the grade book, I don't typically go back and say, gee, I wonder if they redid it or whatever. So it is your responsibility to do that. All right. And I will get to regrading it or whatever you want to call it as soon as I possibly can, but it may be a bit before I do. All right. So with that said, I'm going to immediately jump into Visual Studio, and there is a reason that I'm doing this. I'm going to explain all of it to you in just 1 second, but let me get into Visual Studio. All right. So I just created an empty console program. All right. And I'm going to put some comments here explaining what I'm about to do. But I made a solution that's called Array Examples. All right. And I'm putting a console program in there right now. Right now, as you can see, there's literally nothing in it. So the first thing I'd like to do before class, I came in and, whoops, try that again. All right, and wrote some requirements myself. I'm doing this, and no joke, I'm doing this off the top of my head. So it'll be interesting to see how well it does or does not work. I am going to put in using static system.console up here, so I don't have to constantly be writing all that stuff. So in other words, I will be able to say just read line and write line, etc. Okay. All right. So what does it say here? We will make this program as both first a C# console app, and that's grades console. That's what I'm doing now. Then we'll go back and we'll recreate it as a C# GUI app. So it'll be called grades GUI. All right. We will put both of these programs in a folder. It really shouldn't have said folder. It should have said a solution that will be called array examples. So in other words, I now have grades console under array examples. When I get done with grades console, I will be writing grades GUI. All right. So here are our requirements. And again, like I said, I've got a bunch of other ones that we're going to start going over in a bit, but I thought it might be easier to introduce it like this, thinking that the other ones that I've already created might be a little bit too complex to start with. So we're assuming that we have 10 students who are taking a test. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, and I could call this whatever I want, but I will create an int array called grades, and it'll be of size 10. So in other words, it'll have elements in it 0 through 9. All right. Secondly, the possible grades for the test are this. So I will have a const min grade, const int min grade, equals 0. And I'll also have a const int max grade equal 100. Now, all the stuff that we have already done, that should make sense to you because we've done things similar to this already. For this one where I create the array, basically it'll say this. It'll say int bracket bracket grades equal new int 10. There won't be anything in it when we create it. All right. I am also going to attempt to use the is present to make sure that we don't have an empty grade in there. The is in 32 to make sure we don't have any non-numeric grades, and the is within range. All right. Now I might have to rewrite those at least a little bit just because of the fact that those three routines that are on page 213 of our book, they are based off of doing things in a GUI. I'll keep the names, but I might have to change the way that I rewrite them. All right. So when we're all done and the grades have all been inputted, then we want to determine the total number of people who got an A. So again, for any of these 5 counters, which is what they're going to be, the minimum amount that there could be is 0, and the maximum there could be would be 10. All right. After we finish that up, we want the highest test grade, we want the lowest test grade, and we want the average test grade. And what is the average going to be? The sum of all the test grades divided by 10. And we'll do that to 2 decimal places. All right. And when I do this, I'm going to try at least to do it and make it modularized. All right. So as I'm doing this, if you have any questions, you'll have to ask. All right. So let's see. So what do we want to do in here? Now I'm going to put some stuff in here and I'm going to get all sorts of errors because I'm going to call routines I have not yet written. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and start by saying, let's see, input grades. So that'll be the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to input my grades. Again, I'm getting an error because I don't have that information in here. All right, I haven't written an input grades yet. We'll write that in just a minute. So that'll allow us to come in here and input the grades. All right. And when we're inputting them, that's when we're going to have to check to make sure that they're not empty, to make sure that they're numeric, and to make sure that they're within range. All right. So right now, I am going to come in and at the top of my program, I'm going to add my constants. So create global constants, and I'm just going to have those 2. So const int min grade equals 0, and const int max grade, and that will be equal to 100. Now, I really, because there's a lot of stuff I'd like to do today, I'm not going to write a boatload of comments. Hopefully, between the comment we've got up there and this one, you realize that's the lowest grade somebody can get, and that's the highest grade somebody can get. So hopefully that all makes sense. All right. So what else do we need in here? Well, we're going to need that array. And I might be passing that array around a lot. So even though it's not the best practice, I am going to make that array global. So we're going to say global variable. And that'll be my one that we did right here. Okay. Now, one thing about this isn't well written. What do I mean? Well, it'll work and it's totally fine. But what if we have another couple people who enter the class or another couple people who drop the class? All right. So I'm going to make one more constant up here. Another int, and I'm going to call it num studs for number of students. And I'm going to set that right now equal to 10. All right. So that'll now become num studs. Now you might say, well, what did that really buy you? If I'm going to be using that number in there a lot and that number changes, I only have to change it in one place. So that's kind of nice. So far in here, I've come in and I have set up my array. I have set up my constants. All right, I'm going to have to do this later because I haven't inputted my grades yet. And then when I get done, okay, I'm going to have to figure out all of my totals, for lack of better words. All right. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully all of that makes sense. So let's not try to make this too hard. And what I mean is, let's do one thing at a time. So I'm calling input grades here. So let's write that. Now, one thing about this is when you go and write these, you notice my errors are all gone now, but this routine won't do anything. If I'm working on a console app, let me say that again. If I'm working on a console app and I'm using variables that are up here, see, this will have to be static. So if you're using not constants, but if you're using variables, or you are calling routines that are directly from main, all right, those have to be called static. And if you say, well, I don't know what static means, for right now, all right, just know the fact that that main is static. And what this means is you can only have one main in a program. All right, and this other statics means that they're going to be involved directly with main, so they have to be static as well. All right, so what I want to do in here, here's a surprise, is I want to input my grades. All right, so when I do this, it'd be easy enough, and I'm gonna this won't be the final product, but to say for int LCV, my loop control variable, equals 0, LCV is less than my number of students, plus LCV, and yeah, and then just come in there and say enter a grade. All right. The problem is that every time we do this, we have to make those 3 checks. Was it empty? Was it numeric? In other words, was it an integer? And was it within range? So we have to do that every time. So I could come in here and say something like this. I could come in and say, write line, back to making it right, and say input grade number, and I will put in here LCV dot toString. If you don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to run this in just a minute so you can see it. I want to get better at running this as we're going so you can see how we're building this incrementally. All right, and then I'm going to say grades LCV equals read line. No, I'm sorry. It's an int. So let's see, int 32 dot parse console.readline. Okay, so let me just grab this, everything I've done so far, and after we call input grades, I'm just going to put a read line in here because I want the program to stop so you can see what we're doing. And we will say, let's put a blank line between each one. It should look a little nicer then. So let's see what I've done so far. All right, now I'm going to run this and I'm going to have to change my share so you can see it. All right, so let me change my share here. All right. Now you'll have to tell me, Grant, can you see on the screen where it says input grade 0?
Not yet, no.
All
It's
right.
just blank.
All right, then let me redo it. And in fact, rather than having it say grade 0, we want that to say grades 1. So let me change that here first. All right, so we're going to put in here LCV plus 1 dot toString. So that'll be the first thing. Plus, after we do this, so input grade number. And when we get done inputting that, we want to, let's just put in here a tab. I don't know if it'll even take a tab, but we'll try it. All right, so let me save this. And let me run it again, and I'll try to change my share again, and you'll tell me whether or not it worked. All right, so stop my share, restart my share, and show my black screen. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Says in, okay. So I'm just going to put in here 3, 3, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That all works. I'm now able to come in here and input numbers. That's good. All right. And it's not, you might say, well, that's not doing much. It's not, and I get that. All right, but little steps. So in other words, I just wanted to see, was I able to actually go in there and input that stuff? That was the key right there. So that does appear like it's working. All right. The problem is, and we've talked about this before, is right there. We're doing an int32.parse on that. We don't want to do that because remember, I'm not going to change my share again. But if I run the program again, and either for any of those 10 grades, if I put in nothing or I put in something non-numeric, the program will blow up. And of course, we don't want that. All right. So remember, there's another way that we can do this. Instead of saying grades, LCV, etc., like this, there's another way we can do it. So I'm going to comment out that line. I'm going to make a Boolean variable in here that we're going to call result, which I'm not going to give a value to. All right. But I'm going to come in here and say this. Instead of doing it like this, I'm going to say result equals. So what do we want to do? All right. We want to try and parse the value that we've put in there. So I want to say int 32 dot try parse. What are we trying to parse? Whatever we're reading in. And if it works, where do we want to put it? Well, we want to put it into that grade. Now, if you look at this, let's see, what doesn't it like here? Assignment 2 must be passed. Oh, I need the word out there. I'm sorry. Okay. So what is this doing in English? What this is saying is, I want you to take whatever we read in there, and I want you to attempt to parse it or convert it into an integer. If you are able to successfully, if you can successfully, all right, put it into an integer, if you can, then it'll become that particular grade. And if you can, it'll be that grade and result will be true. If you cannot, result will be false. So in other words, all right, we want you to be stuck in here until you put in a valid grade. All right, well, what does that mean? Well, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to assume, all right, that result is false. Okay, now I'm going to take this condition and I'm going to put this in a while, not result. So again, what you have to do, I'm going to make this a little bigger if I can. That's too big. All right, what we have to do in here is you have to play computer. All right, what do I mean? Well, we come in here and we set this result thing to false. And this says while not result. Remember, that's a shortcut for saying while result equal false. And guess what? It is, because we set it up above. So we will come in and do this. We'll say input grade 1. We'll attempt to parse it. If it succeeds, then result will be true. So that'll be false. It'll jump back up to the for loop. But if this fails, if we put something non-numeric in there, this should still be false. So it comes up and checks it. Oh, it says it's still false. So it should ask us to do it again. All right, I'm going to try that. That's one of our 3 checks. All right, remember, we have to make sure that it's not empty. We have to make sure that it's numeric. All right, we're doing the numeric one right here. All right, and we're doing the not empty one right here. So really the only thing that we're going to have left is checking for our range if I did this right. So let's see if I did. So again, I will change my share, and you please tell me in just a second here. Can you now see the black screen?
Yes.
Okay, if I leave it blank, well, it's still telling me to input. If I put garbage in there, it's still telling me to input it. But if I put in a valid number in there, well, now it's not. What is it doing? Looked like it broke. And that's okay. It really didn't break. What it did was we didn't tell it what to do next. All right. So we have to do that. All right. So while not result, so come in here. So if result is true, we should fall out and go right to here. All right. So what do we want to do then? Well, we have to basically go to our next student. All right. Let's see. So result equals this. Okay. And I'm not sure if this is going to work, but like I said, I'm doing it off the top of my head here. So if result, I'm going to say continue. All right, because what I want to see is if it was true, just to go back up. Okay, so let's see if that works. In fact, yeah, that's in my while loop. So hopefully that'll work. So again, I will change my share. Sorry, I'm going to have to keep doing this, but I want you to see what I'm doing as I'm doing it. So can you again see the black screen?
Yeah.
All right, so if I leave it blank, yes. If I leave it non-numeric, okay. If I put in something valid, well, it still doesn't like something. All right, it looks like right there, basically what it's doing is it's grabbing that read line, and maybe that read line is in the wrong place. So I'm going to see right now if that read line is in the wrong place. All right, so I'm going to grab that read line that we put up here, and I'm going to put it down right before the end of my for loop. So right here. Oops. Okay, so let's see. So either way, let's see, if I do a continue, it'll skip there. Let's try putting the read line right here. Right? This is part of the problem that I run into when I do try to, oh, I got too many of these. When I typically will run into when I try doing stuff off the top of my head. All right, and that's on me. So file, save all. Again, hopefully this will work now. Let me run it. Let me change my share. In fact, let me run it right now. And let me just see if it works, and then I'll change the share then. It's not. It's stuck, for lack of better words. So let's try to see if we can debug this. Okay. So for I equals 0, I'm sorry, LCV equals 0, LCV less than number of students. Okay, plus LCV. So we're coming in here with this while loop. All right. While result is not true, and it isn't, we tell it to input our grade. All right. We attempt to take whatever they put in there. Okay. Now, if result is true, I'm telling it to continue. Technically, I probably want to do a break here because I want to get out of this loop. All right. Remember, when we're working with loops, If I say continue, it just skips and goes back up again. Well, that's not really what I want to have happen. I want to break out of this while loop. So if they put in something that's valid here, I just should want to break. Hopefully that'll fix this. All right. Now I'm still going to grab that read line. And at the end of my for loop here, when I'm done with it, I'm going to put the read line in there. So we'll see now if it works. So let me run it and let me change my share right away so you can see what the heck I'm doing. Can you see my black screen here?
Yeah.
All right. So if I put in nothing, okay, if I put in non-numeric, how about if I put in something valid? It still is hanging up. All right. I don't like that. And this is on me. Like I said, what we can, I mean, we can get around this real easily, but I want to be able to make my checks, and this, for whatever reason, isn't working. So if result break, which should break us out of here. When we break out of there, we should be going back up to here. We should be adding 1 to LCV. And the problem is we've already made this true. So what if I come in here and at the beginning all the time, I reset. So result is back equal to false again. I have to force that. So I think the problem right now is as soon as I set that to true, it is jumping back up here, but it's saying while not result. Well, we've set result to true here. Okay. Now, okay. All right. So let me save it and try it again. Let me run it like this by myself and then it's working. Good. So I'm going to run this again. I want you to see it. So let me change my share and then we'll go on. All right. Again, you see the black screen, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I put in nothing. It tells me to redo it. If I put in non-numeric, it tells me to redo it. I put in a number that's out of range. Now it's going to take it because we haven't checked for that yet. But if I put in this, now it tells me to put in grade 2. So it is now working. All right. The only thing that we still have to check on here, as I go back to Visual Studio, is if it's out of range. Okay, so if it's out of range, all right, so here, if result, I don't want to necessarily break. All right, I want to come in here and I want to say if, now we've got a grade, so if grades LCV, so if that grade is less than the minimum grade, or I have to do my range check is what I'm telling you. So if it's less than 0 or it's greater than 100. So if either one of those are the case, it's still wrong. So in other words, I want to come in here in that case, I want to say, so if the result, I'm going to come in here and say result equal false. All right. So I've got an if within an if here, not fossil. And this is going to be doing right here a range check. Okay. Now, if that's not the case, that means I put in a number that's within range. Now I can break. All right. Let me do this, and then we'll go back and take a look at everything we've done thus far. So let me do a file save all. Right? And let me run it. And let me change my share. And again, I have to ask you, am I right in assuming you can see the black screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I leave it blank, it doesn't take anything. If I leave it there, it doesn't take anything. If I put in a number less than 0, it doesn't take it. If I put in a number greater than 100, it doesn't take it. If I put in a valid number, it accepts it. So it looks like we've got our is present, our is in 32, and our is within range are all being handled now. All right, so all of our grades should now have been inputted. Okay, so that's good. So I'm just going to kill that and go back to Visual Studio. All right, so when we look at our requirements here, we have the 10 students. We have put in the max and the minimum. We have now checked all this. All right, so grades cannot be empty. All right, so we've got all that stuff. So the only thing that's left, it's not small, but the only thing that's left is to do this. So after all the grades have been inputted, we now want the total number of A's, the total number of B's, the total C's, the total D's, and the total F's. We'll do that first. All right. After we do that, then we'll do the highest grade and we'll do the lowest grade, and then we'll do the average grade. And again, I'm trying to make this at least somewhat modular. So we've got our input grades, which is a pretty long routine. I'll give you that. It's pretty long. We could have probably broke this up, but I think it makes more sense to leave it the way it is. After we input our grades, we're going to calculate number of A, B, C, D, F grades. Long name, but I want you to know exactly what we're doing. Then we will calculate the highest grade. What was the order? I just want to do it in that order. So that'll be the total number, highest, lowest, and average. So calculate the highest grade. Then we will calculate the lowest grade. And finally, we will calculate the average grade. All right. And I could change the name of these as we calculate this stuff. We'll print it out right away. All right. Let me comment these out until I write them. And let's start with this one. Calculate, it's a big name, but you get it. Calculate number of A, B, C, D, F grades. So we're going to put that down here. That's outside of our input grades routine. So we're going to write a new routine, static void, and it's going to be called calculate number A, B, C, D, F grades. Okay. Well, how do we do this? Well, to me, what makes sense is to have 5 counters. So I'm going to have an int total A's, and I'll set that to 0. Another int total B's, and set that equal to 0. Another one, int total C's, and we'll set that equal to 0. Another one, total D's, we'll set that equal to 0. And another one, total F's, and we'll set that equal to 0. So we now have these 5 counters. Again, I'm not going to write comments. Hopefully that's a good enough name that it makes sense to you. Well, 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is a D, 0 to 59 is an F. We've done this kind of thing before. So I'm going to have to go through and loop through my array again. So 4, but now the array is filled. All right, so I can do that. And I'm going to say, if I want the current grade. All right, so if grades LCV, if it's greater than or equal to 90, well, we got an A, right? So plus total A's. All right. Else, and I'm going to copy this because it'll go a little faster. But I need to add the word else in there first. So else, if it's greater than or equal to 80, we can add 1 to our total B's. All right. And I'm just going to copy this down again. So that'll be B, C, D, F. All right. If it's greater than or equal to 70, we'll add 1 to our C's. If it's greater than or equal to 60, we'll add 1 to our D's. And if it's greater than or equal to 0, and it should be anyway, but we'll add 1 to our F's. Now, I'm asking you this question, and I'm sorry I'm putting it on you, but you're the only one watching live. Does that stuff that's in there, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, yeah, we've done similar stuff like that before.
Yes, we have. All right. So that's in the for loop. So once we fall out of the for loop, I can just print these out. So I'm going to put in here a write line, and I'll start it with just a couple blank lines. In fact, let's do a clear. All right, so we'll do a clear, and whoops, I need my semicolon. And now I'm just going to do a write line, and it'll say total number A grades, and that'll be what? Total A's dot toString. Okay. And what I'll do in here is I'll put a \n at the end of each one of these. Okay, and then just copy this. A, B, C, D, F. Okay, so this will be the total number of B's, the total number of C's, the total number of D's, the total number of F's. And again, that'll have to change as well to B, C, D, and F. All right, let's look at that and see if this works. And I want to make sure, just to keep it, not exactly in symmetry, but I'm going to put in 2 A's, 2 B's, 2 C's, 2 D's, and 2 F's, and see if my counter equals 2, 2, excuse me, for each one. So let me do a save all, and let me run the program again. I will change my share. You can see the black screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not going to check for my error conditions. I already did that. So I'm going to start with 2 F's. So 0, 0. All right. Then I'm going to put in 2 D's, 60, 60. Then I'm going to put in 2 C's, 70, 70, followed by 2 B's, 80, 80, followed by 2 A's, 90, 90. Now, when I hit enter, the screen should clear, and it should then show me my counters. All right, so total number A grades, B's, and it looks like it's working. All right, so let me stop the run here, change my share again. And so now what do we have left? Well, now we have done all this. Okay, so we can do our highest grade and our lowest grade. I'm doing them as 2 different routines. We could do them as 1 routine, but we're doing each one of these as its own routine. All right. So the highest grade, the lowest grade, and the average grade. So now we're going to be able to call calculate highest grade in just a moment. We're getting that error, of course, because it hasn't been written yet. So we're going to write that right now. So again, static void calculate highest grade. And actually, when you think about it, this isn't hard. All right. So we're going to assume that our highest grade, I'm going to say here, int highest grade, and I'm going to set it equal to -1. And the reason I'm doing that is as we loop through our array, as we loop through it, I'm going to steal this code here. As we loop through it, the first time we put in a grade, it's going to become the new highest. So all I have to do in here is say if grades LCV, if that's greater than our highest grade, we've got a new highest grade. So we'll say highest grade equals grades LCV. And then when we're all done in the loop, we'll say, we'll put in a write line, and we'll say the highest grade was, and then we'll say here, whoop, it's got to be in double quotes. and then highest grade dot to string. All right. So that should handle everything as far as our highest grade. Let's see. In fact, before I do that, just so you know, I'm gonna comment out here, or uncomment, calculate lowest grade. Why? Because it's virtually the same thing as the highest, except the check we make is going to be a little different. So let me copy this. And now we'll also have calculate lowest grade. We'll set the lowest grade equal to 101, okay? And if the current grade is less than the lowest grade, now we've got a new lowest grade. Oops. And we can say now the lowest grade. I never changed the name here, so let me do that. And that'll become lowest. All right, they're virtually the same thing, except instead of seeing if we got a new high, we're seeing if we've got a new low. All right, and then we might as well write the average one too, because that's probably the easiest. It's one line out of all of them. So I will comment that out. And then we will call that. All right, we will take a break at right before 9 o'clock or right around 9 o'clock. So static void, and this will be calculate average grade. And again, the easiest thing about that is, well, we need the sum of all the grades, and then we need to divide it by 10. We've already got a loop in here, a looping type of mechanism. So I'll say int sum. In fact, let's make it a decimal because we have to do a division. We'll make it an int sum equals 0. All right. Then as we come through here, we want to say sum plus equal grades LCV. So that'll add the current grade to sum. Then when we're done, we need the average. That'll be a decimal. AVG, and we'll set that equal to 0M. All right. So how do we do that? We say average AVG equals sum divided by, we'll say 10.0M. All right. And then we'll do a right line. All right, so we don't want lowest grade in here anymore. We want some AVG, and we want this to say the average grade was. And we wanted that to 2 decimal places. So let's see if this whole thing works. All right, and then we'll go back and take a quick look at everything that was in here. All right, now I'm going to ask you a question. Again, you're my gauge here. When we get done with this, if I were to put this out onto a GitHub repo, would that help that you'd be able to go back and look at it?
Definitely.
Okay. Well, see, what my fear is, it's not a fear with you. All right, you're doing fine in here. And about half the class is doing fine and the other half is struggling. What I don't want to see have happen is I don't want people to sit there when you get a test is to grab one of these, just plunk it in there and start making changes. That's not how you program. All right, like I said, I'm not saying you do that. That's the only reason that I have a little quirkiness about actually putting that out there. All right, but I will. So file, save all, and I'm going to run it. And let me change my share right away. Again, am I right that you see the black screen here?
Yes.
All right. So I'm just going to put in 10 random grades: 89, 45, 56, 71, 100, 0, 69, 88, 91, and 73. Now let's play computer here before I hit enter. All right, that's a B. So there's 1 B, 2 B's in here right now. There should be 2 B's. There is 1 A, 2 A's. So there's 2 A's, there are 2 B's. C's, there's 1, 2. So there's 2 C's. D's, 1, no, 1, nope. What is it? That's up to 60, up to 70, I think. There's just 1 D, it looks like. And F's, 1, 2, 3, if I did my math right. All right. The highest grade should be 100. The lowest grade should be 0. And I'm going to do one more thing. You won't see this probably, but I brought the calculator up on the screen. I'm going to add together 89, 45, 56, 71. Oh, somehow got screwed up. Try it again. 89, 45, 56, 71, 100. Don't have to add 0, but 69, 88, 91, and 73. If I added it right, and I think I did, I got 682. If I divide 682 by 10, should give me 68.2. And it does. So let's see if indeed those are the different grades that I get in doing this. All right. So we had 2, 2, 2, 1, 3, like we said. The highest was 100. The lowest was 0. And the average was 68.2. So at least as far as I can tell, it appears as though it worked. So let me do this and then we will take a break. All right. So I'm going to go in here and I don't have to, I don't think I need a comment here. This is my global variable. That's my array. All right. Hopefully these names are good enough. Hopefully those names are good enough that, you know, you could look at them and say, yep, I get what you're doing. All right. So let's look. So this method inputs the 10 grades for each grade. Checks are made to guarantee that 1, the grade is not empty. 2, the grade is numeric. 3, the grade entered is between 0 and 100. All right. So for each, yes, okay. Keep the user in a loop until they enter a valid grade for each of the 10 grades. All right, so hopefully that's good enough. And this will be the result of the int32.try_parse right there. All right, so input the 10 grades. All right, set that to false. I'm just going to say here, resetting result variable. And we want to reset it because we want to make sure we get in the loop every time. All right, while result. So this is attempting to input that grade. Again, when we first did it, we did it like that, but it can blow up. So here, attempt to convert inputted grade from the command line to an integer. If successful, I'll start that on a new line. If successful, well, we want to first set result equal to true because it was valid. And second, all right, so again, we want to do this. We want to put the grade into grades LCV. All right. Now, if result was true and integer was inputted for the current grade, now verify that the grade inputted was between 0 and 100. In other words, between min grade and max grade. All right, so that's our range check. If out of range grade inputted, set result to false, which will force user to input grade again. All right. Here, if result is true, execute a break statement to get out of while loop. Okay. I don't believe we need this in here anymore, this read line. So for now, at least, if I need it again, I'll go in and put it back in, but I don't think we need it. So as the name of it says, this method calculates the total number of A grades. And again, those are grades 90 to 100. The total number of B grades, do it like this so it looks a little nicer. Again, those are grades from 80 to 89. The total number of C grades, and again, those are grades 70 to 79. The total number of D grades, and again, those are grades that are 60 through 69, and total number of F grades. And those are grades that go from 0 to 59. All right. And the value of each counter is then displayed. All right, I'm gonna grab that comment there. So this calculates the highest grade. And again, grab that comment from here. the value, so calculate the highest grade, the value of, so the highest grade is then displayed. All right. And again, we set this to -1 to force the first grade that we read in to become the new highest grade. All right, then we do a similar thing here, but this calculates the lowest grade. And then the lowest grade is printed out. And finally, this calculates the average grade. And the average grade is then printed out. All right, I think, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think that's commented enough now that hopefully you can read through it and figure out what's going on. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Sorry, it's a little longer. Let's take, it's 9:02. Let's take till 9:17. I'll give you 15 minutes. I'm going to save this and then I'm going to go back and rewrite it as a GUI app. All right. So we'll do that in just a couple minutes. All right, it's 9:17. I hope you're back. I'm going to keep the console app open, and now I'm going to create the Gui app. I'm going to do a couple things in here that I haven't done before. I was thinking about this during the break, and hopefully it'll make some sense to you as we get going. So I'm going to come in here, right mouse click, add a new project. I know you can't see that. It'll be a Windows Forms app. And the other one was Grades Console. So this one will be Grades GUI. All right. And there it is. Now, I'm not sure, but I think the way I'm going to write this, it's going to need to be bigger. So I'm going to do that to make it bigger. All right. And then, as I always do, I'm going to start by changing the name of the form. So I'm just going to change this, keep it simple, call it FRM Grades Array. Yes, I want to change everything, and we'll change the text on here as well to a program utilizing an integer array. All right, maybe not the best, but that'll work. And as always, because I like to do this, I'm going to change the background color of the form, and we'll choose whatever that is there, that color. All right, now I want the input to basically be about as simple as possible. What do I mean? Well, I'm going to have buttons in here, and I'm going to start by putting in my buttons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button. This will be able to be pressed, and this will give me, what did we ask for? We asked for the highest grade. We asked for the lowest grade. We asked for the average grade. See if I missed anything. So I'm going to copy that comment in from the last program. So I'm going to go back to my last program, grab the comment, copy it, and then paste it in here. All right, so total number of A's, total number of B's. Okay, we got those also, those. So we got 5, 6, 7, 8. So I want 8 buttons. All right. So this will be my highest. This will be my lowest. This will be my average. This will be my total number of A's, my total number of B's, my total number of C's, my total number of D's, and my total number of F's. All right. In addition, down here, so it looks a little symmetrical, this will be my clear button, and that will be my exit button. All right. In fact, these will be total A, B, C, D, and F. This will end up being my highest grade, lowest grade, average grade, clear, and exit. All right. The only thing I don't like it is that to me the buttons look a little too chunky. So I am going to see if I can cut down the size a little bit. That looks better to me. All right. It's not perfect, but it'll work. Now, my inputs are going to be pretty simple. And what I mean is this. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to have a label. And this is going to tell me to input a grade. All right, so so we can see that. And it's a little too red. That's probably good enough. Set the auto size to false. Okay. So that's going to basically tell me to input the grade. And then we're going to put a text box in here as well, where we'll actually input the grade. There's that. These will get bigger in just a minute. And then we're going to have the output, which will be what the grade actually is. So that's my interface. I'm not going to lock it yet, so let's start here. Yeah, we can do the whole thing. And I will change the size, as I always do, of everything. So 20, bold, and Arial. There's that. I still would like these to be a little bit bigger, but I guess that'll work the way it is. So let's just start creating stuff. Okay, so this will be BTN total A's. I'm just going to rename them all first. BTN total B's. BTN total C's. BTN total D's. And finally, BTN total F's. All right, now let's change the actual names on these. I don't like that says total A's. We'll put that like this, total A's like that. It's not great, but that'll work. Right, so that's them. Again, this will be highest grade. Right. This will be the lowest grade. This will be the average grade. This will be the clear button. And this will be the average. Sorry, the exit button. All right. This will be LBL input grade. And it'll say input grade. I might have to make it a little bigger, which is fine. Text. Try this again. This is LPL input grade, and the text will be input grade. All right. And like I said, I might have to make this a little bit bigger. In fact, let's move this. And then we'll move this. Okay, so input grade. And this will be TXT I'm just going to call it txt grade, and I'm going to call that one LBL grade. And this is also going to be a grade. So this, let's change this. This will be LBL number grade. All right, and it'll say number grade. I like that better. And this one will say, so this is LBL number grade, DXT number grade. And this will be LBL letter grade. And it will say letter grade. And this will be TXT letter grade. All right, let me grab these two. And I will finally these two. All right, that's good enough. Now, kind of like, don't like the way that these are real far apart from each other, so I'm going to move so they're closer, and then I'm going to move this one down as well. That's good enough. It's not a great interface, but it will suffice for what we're trying to do here. So I'm going to lock the interface into place, and I'm going to double check to make sure that I have renamed all of my controls. Looks like I have. All right, so let's come in and set our accept button. We don't have a calculate button. We'll put one in down here. So that will be BTN calculate. And it'll say calculate. Okay. Reset this. So these are locked again. Good. All right. So let's see. The letter grade is going to be read only. Okay, so that is done. It's kind of hard to tell on there that it's read only, but it is. All right. So let's start the way that we always start. And that is I'll double click calculate and that'll get my calculate button ready. I'll double click clear and that'll get my clear button ready. And I'll double click exit and that'll get my exit button ready. We got to do these. We'll do those in just a bit. All right, so let's see. First of all, when we clear, we want to clear this and we want to clear this. All right, and then put the focus here. So clear and set focus. And I want to say txt number grade dot text equals double quote txt letter grade text equals double quote txt number grade dot focus. All right. And as always, we'll call this exit program or not. Get my error until I write it. So private void exit program or not. As always, I'm going to steal that code from the stuff I sent you earlier. So let me find that. Okay, let me save this. I haven't set my focus or my tab order, etc. in my Windows start position, but I don't care. I just want to see if, whoops, and I didn't set my file to run either, so my project. All right, so there's that. I'll move this and put some junk in here. Clear works, exit also works. Okay, then let's come in here as we do and click on here and set the start position to center screen. All right, and let's see what else. I want to set the tab order, and that will be 0, 1. Doesn't matter how we do these. So I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I probably could have set it in a better order than that, but I just wanted something in there. So tab order. So file, save all, and let's run it one more time. All right, it is in the center of the screen and clear works. Okay, now one thing I want to do, and you may have seen this in the book, you may not have seen this in the book. Okay, all these buttons that are right here, the total A's, total B's, total C's, total D's, total F's, highest, lowest, and average, those 8 buttons, I want to disable those buttons until I've entered in 10 valid grades. I'm going to say that again. All right. I want to disable those buttons until I've entered in the grades. All right. There's different ways I can do this, but I'm going to write a routine at the bottom of my screen. Oops, try that again. It'll be a private void, and I'm going to call it disable buttons. Okay. And I'm going to literally say, BTN total A's dot enabled equal false. Okay. And I'm just going to copy these. A, B, C, D, F, highest, lowest, average. Okay, so that's all of them. So total B's, total C's, total D's, total F's. This will be BTN highest. This will be BTN lowest. And this one I think was BTN average. Okay. All right. Now, when the program first loads, I want all of those buttons to be disabled. So in my form load, I'm going to call disable buttons. Now I have to enable them later, but let me check and make sure that that worked. So file, save all, run the program. And you'll notice these buttons are all grayed, meaning they're a different color than these two. So there's nothing that we can do with those buttons until we enable them. We'll do that in just a bit. All right, the other thing I want to do before I write my code in here for my calculate, all right, the other thing that I want to do is, hopefully you remember this, I want to click on my number grade, and I want to come down and set the tag property there. I want to set it to number grade, just like that. All right, now I should be able to come in and do my calculate work. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to call those the is present, and I want to call the is int 32, and I want to call the is within range. Well, we don't have a range yet, so let's put that in. So in other words, I'm going to start just like we did before. All right, I'm going to put in my global constants, and that'll be const int min grade is going to be equal to 0, and const int max grade is going to be equal to 100. So that's the first thing. That'll help when I want to make that range check. Okay. But I want my is present I want my is int 32, and I want my is within range. So I'll want to do all of those when I do this. All right. So what I'm going to do, and you won't see this for a second, sorry, but I'm going to head back out to our Muroc text. And I've got a PDF version. So I got to go here. I'm going to go to page 213 and I'm going to grab each one of those 3 routines. Actually, I think I've got them saved somewhere in here, and I saved them and I put Muroc in there. So let me check for that. Otherwise, it's too hard to copy them. Start. There it is. Muroc generic functions. That's what I want. All right, I'm going to copy those right into my program. And again, these are taken right from the book. So I'm going to go down to the bottom here. And I'm going to paste those in. I think one of them at least I don't need. All right, and which one? I need the is present. I don't need an is decimal. I do need an is in 32. So that one I can get rid of. So we've got is present, text box, text box. I'm not going to worry about putting a title in there. I'll just leave that empty. For now, we can fix that later. That's not a big thing. All right, I'm not, again, that same thing here with that title. And it'll be the same thing here. We'll fix that in just a bit. All right, so I just want to see if this is actually correct. So here is our is present. We will pass in our text box. If it's empty, we'll write down that that text box is a required field. We'll reset the focus and we'll return false. Otherwise, we'll return true. Good. Then our is in 32. All right. We will try to go in and parse that. If we can parse it, we'll return true. Otherwise, we'll give a message saying that that value must be an integer. We will not only set the focus, we will say text box dot text equals double quote. So we'll clear out what's in there and then we'll return false. This is our range one. All right. And what we're going to have in here for our ranges, put it on another line so you can read it, is we'll have in here int min grade and int max grade. All right. And actually, we don't even need to do that. We can call them min and max, but we'll pass them in as min grade and max grade. Okay. All right. We want to do a convert dot to int 32. All right. Must be within that range. Again, text box dot text equals double quote. All right. So very similar to what we've done before in that I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a Boolean flag called keep going. And I'm going to set that equal to is present. And we have to pass in there txt number grade. So again, this will be call method to verify that value in text box 1 is not empty. Okay? And then we'll say keep going, if keep going. So in other words, if this is true, okay, something was entered into text box 1. So verify that what was entered is numeric. So we will say keep going equal is int 32, and again we will pass in txt number grade. All right. On an else that's right here, if the else is true, then nothing entered into text box. All right. We can handle this in multiple different ways, but what I'll do is to try to make it easier for the user. I will call my show message, which hasn't been written yet, and I will pass in a message, which will be text box left blank. Not the greatest, but it'll be fine. And then the title on that will be you cannot leave this blank. All right, since I've got that error, let's quickly write the show message at the very bottom here. So that's another private void show message. We'll pass in a string that is the message and another string, which is the title. All right, and we'll do a message box dot show, and it'll be the message, and it'll be the title, and it'll be message box buttons okay, and message box icon dot error. All right, so we have now handled, okay, if we come in here and we don't enter anything in there, we'll get that message and then we'll just return. All right. Okay, so we've got that. Now we've got to check that is in 32. So if keep going. So if this is true, if true, we entered a number. In fact, let's make it better, an integer. All right, so if that's the case, then keep going is going to be equal to is within range. All right, and that'll have to be the text box, txt number, and min grade, and max grade. I think that's everything. If I missed anything, we'll figure it out in a minute. All right. If not, so if the else is true, copy our error thing, we'll amend it in just a second. That means non-numeric value entered into text box. So here text box value must be integer. Okay, so we've handled 2 of those. And now the last one to handle is this is within range. All right, so if it still keep going, so if keep going, well, now we have verified that a value was inputted into, all right, a value was inputted into text box 1. The value inputted into text box 1 was numeric. The value inputted into text box 1 was between 0 and 100. All right. So if that's the case, I want to enable my buttons. So I had a routine I called disable buttons. Let's call one that's called enable buttons. All right. It's not written yet. So let's grab this one that we wrote that was called disable buttons. And let's put it right underneath there. We'll call it enable buttons. And instead of setting all of these to false, we're going to set them all to true. All right, just reversing basically what was happening in there. Now, believe it or not, we're almost done, except for the fact, okay, we haven't done a thing with arrays yet. We haven't done anything. All right, and we didn't make those buttons work, but we'll do that in just a second. All right, so as we go in here, we have to basically do this, all this stuff that's in here, all that, we have to do that 10 times. So we have to put this into a for loop. So for int LCV equals 0, LCV less than, do we still have our num students in here? I don't think so. So let's have our const int num studs that we set equal to 10. All right, so let's see, less than num studs plus LCV. Okay. Now, let's play computer here for a second. So we want to do this 10 times. For each one of these values, what we want to do is we want to come in here and check if it's present. If it is present, then we want to check, all right, we want to check basically if it's numeric. If it's not numeric, all right, if it was blank originally, we want to have that. If it was numeric, okay, then we want to check if it's within range. Here, it's right there. If we had that, then it must be an integer. All right, we still need another else in here because the number we entered was out of range. All right, so out of range value entered into text box. Text box value must be 0 through 100. And we'll say out of range input. All right, it's getting there. So if this was the case, if we had an error in there, we want them to read it in again. All right, so this is very similar to what we just had. All right, so let's see. I'm going to put a while loop in my for loop that says while keep going. Okay. For loop. These all have to move over. Move that. All right. So we've got this here while keep going. And I don't have it in calculate. So let me bool keep going. We'll set that equal to true. Okay. All right. So change that. There we go. Okay. So we're going to do this 10 times. We only want to go into this while keep going is true. All right. So that goes to here and to here. So I'm just going to put in a couple comments here. So end while end for. Okay. Begin for. Begin while. Okay. So we want to do this 10 times, but we only want to keep going while that is true. Okay. So we go through there, we do this, etc., etc. All right.
I got a quick question.
Sure.
So, and I think you covered this a little bit in the console example, so I apologize, but in the for statement,
Yes.
why do we use the constant that we declared the number of students instead of just saying 10 if we're going to require that to enter 10
say
numbers
10.
anyway?
We could say 10, or we could say num students, but actually that's a good question. A better way of doing it would have been to, remember here we have our global variable, and that was what? Int bracket grades equal new int 10. Okay, what I really should have done is instead of that, I should say the name of the array, which is grades dot length. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Could you say 10? Of course you could. Would you say num studs like I did before? Of course you could. But what's considered to be the best practice is to put in the name of the array, and after that, you should follow that with the length. That way, if your array size changes, this will change automatically. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thanks. That I remember that from the textbook.
And I really should have went back on that other one, because I'm glad you asked that. I really am. So I really should have gone back on that other one, because here where I put num studs, I should have done the same thing. I should have said grades dot length. All right. Again, that's considered a better way of doing it. And it's not that putting 10 in there or putting either 10 in there or putting in num studs is wrong. It'll work. All right. But this is considered a better way of doing it. All right. So let's see. If we get through all that stuff, if everything worked, all right, then I want to say grades LCV is going to be equal to, and now I can just say a convert dot to int 32 txt number grade dot text. That I can do. So once I've done that, I want to calculate, just like we did before, calculate, try that again. Calculate the letter grade, and I'll get errors on all these because I haven't written them yet. And then I want to calculate, let's see, I don't want to do anything else then. That's all I want to do in here. All right. So that calculating the letter grade, I should be able to grab everything I had in here before. All right. And I should be able to figure out both the letter grade, and I could really add to my counter too, if I wanted to do that. All right. So let's just grab this stuff in here. I'll just do it like this. Okay. And come down here and we'll write right below this, we'll write calculate letter grade. Private void calculate letter grade. Okay, I'm going to paste that in. Now, don't worry about this. We'll fix that in a minute. All right. We'll have a string in here that'll be called LG, which is equal to nothing. That's going to be the letter grade. Okay. Now, the reason it doesn't know in here for LCV, it doesn't know what number we put in there. So when we call this, all right, when we call this right here, we have to pass in LCV, which is the current grade. So we'll put in here int LCV. That'll fix all that. But here I'm just going to say LG equals A, because that'll be an A grade. Just copy them down. LG equals B. LG equals C. LG equals D. And finally, LG equals F. All right, after we've done all that, we've calculated the letter grade, we can print it out. So we can say txt letter grade dot text equals LG. So we've got that handled. All right. And as you can see, I mean, I'm literally, it's probably showing, I'm doing it off the top of my head, and we're up to 260 lines already. All right, give me 5 more minutes and I'm going to give you another break. Okay, so let's see. That should be num studs. All right, did I do that on the other one? That one's correct. Okay. So we want to go through this while keep going. We actually don't want to calculate that letter grade until we fall out of this while loop. Okay, so I'm going to grab this line of code and put it there. All right. Now, the problem is right now, it probably will run, but it's not correct. So in other words, if this was the case, okay, if that was the case, what we want to do, okay, if that's correct, and that's correct, and that's correct, and all that's correct, okay, we should fall out of there then, and we should, again, if everything worked, all right, we should be able to, we don't want to enable our buttons yet, so I'll fix that, but we should be able to call the method to figure out our grade. So if it's present, you want to keep going. Boom, you want to keep going. If it's not present, you want to give a message. All right, but you want to say keep going is false. All right, if we've done this, okay. Otherwise, again, we want to say in here, keep going equal false. All right, so we have done that. We have done that. So any place I'm printing out an error, I want to set keep going equal to false. So I'm going to keep them stuck in there. Okay. If they've gotten to the point right here, if they have gotten to there, all right, then that means that everything was valid. So we can actually convert that. So in other words, we're setting set array element, okay, which will make us fall out of the while loop so we can calculate that letter grade. That's good. We want to do that 10 times. All right. After we've done it 10 times, so we've stopped our for loop. So once we're out of there, now we want to do what? Well, we put in 10 grades. So we want to enable our buttons. And we want to call, in other words, now we should be able to call our different routines. So this is calculating the letter grade. That's correct. That's correct. So we have to write the routines for each one of these buttons, but they're going to be very short. All right. Now, what I should have done, didn't do, but I'm going to do it right now, is when we calculate the letter grades, let's add to the counters right away. So we're going to make our counters global. So that'll be global variables. And we'll have int, total A's equals 0. And we'll have B's, C's, D's, and F's. A, B, C, D, F. All right. Okay, so that's got all those. So when we come in here and we do this, we want to add 1. So plus plus total A's, because they got an A, so we want to add 1 to that counter. Here we want to add 1 to our B's counter. Here we want to add 1 to our, whoops, I'd like to reverse that, to our C's counter. We want to add 1 to our D's counter. And finally, we want to be able to add 1 to our F's counter. All right. Now, when we call each one of these buttons, it's going to be only like a line of code. So for total A's, since it's only one line, I'm going to write it right inline here in the button. All right. In fact, let's see. Maybe we can write a generic routine. All right. Let's print out display grade info, and we will pass in a string in there that will have txt letter grade dot text, and let's see what else. We'll need the number. All right, so we will need the fact that it is which of these counters it is. All right. And we call those total A's, total B's, so I'll just put in here total counter. That'll be an int. Okay, now I'm getting all these errors because, of course, I haven't written that yet. So let me grab this. these, it says here, this must be static. Why is it saying that? Static types cannot be used as parameters. All right, we actually don't even need this because we can just grab that value that was in that letter thing. So that'll work. So we don't need this. And we don't need that. So when we call this total A's, we will want to type in there, we want to pass in. Did we make these global? Great, we did. So total A's, we don't have to pass in anything. Technically. So let's see. I'll tell you what, I'll pass in an A. So displayed gray info, and I'll pass in an A. So what do we put in here? So I'm going to say message box dot show, and we will put in here the total number of, so we are passing in that. And we will pass in, even though it's global, we will pass in total A's. Okay, so this will be the total counter, and this will be the grade. All right, so the total number of grade so that'll say the total number of A's, and then we'll just pass in total counter dot to string. All right. I've been going for about an hour, so let's just take 10 minutes. It's 10:10. Let's come back at 10:20. I'll finish this one up and write one more before 11 o'clock, and we'll finish up. We'll be done at 11. Okay, so I'll see you at 10:20. All right, it's 10:20. The good news is I should be able to basically copy this line of code in for all 5 of those buttons. So in other words, I don't know why that's a mistake, but we'll have to fix that in a bit. All right, so let's see. So we've got the total A's. Here will be the total B's. I'll move this down in just a minute. So here will be the total C's. I'll change all of them in just a second. Here will be the total D's. And here will be the total F's. All right, so I have all those. Let me grab this display grade info and put that on the bottom because they're all going to call that. All right. So A, that'll be B. That'll be C. That'll be D. And that'll be F. So what we should have now is that button should be done, that button should be done, that should be done, that should be done, that should be done, that is done, that is done. So we got to do the highest, we've got to do the lowest, and we've got to do the average. All right. Now, typically, I'm going to cheese out a little bit here. And what I mean is I'm going to do everything, all that stuff right inside of here. So let's see. When we get down to manager, must be this, must be this. When we get down to calculating the letter grade, all right, so after we've done this, we've got a letter grade. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I am going to put in here my, I'll make them in here, an int, I'll call it highest, and I'll set it equal to, again, -1, and I will have an int that's called lowest, and I will set that equal to 101. All right, that's going to be my highest grade and my lowest grade in just a moment. All right, so when I'm down at the bottom here, I've calculated my letter grade. All right. Check for possible new high grade. So if grades LCV is greater than highest, we've got a new high grade. So highest equals grades LCV. And then we will put this in here again. Check for possible new low grade. So if it's less than lowest, then lowest equals that. So now we have all 5 of these buttons done, and this one, and this one. We didn't do that one yet, so let's do that one. All right, so for the highest grade, we're just going to print out LB message box dot show highest grade. And it's not going to recognize that, but we'll fix that in a minute. So highest toString. Okay. And then we'll do our lowest. And that'll be our lowest toString. Okay. These are wrong. It's not BTN highest. This is going to give me an error, but I'll fix it in a minute. And this is going to give me an error too. I'll fix that in a minute. All right, I'm going to take that highest and lowest that we created up here, and I'm going to make them global. Hate making all this stuff global, but it'll work now. So highest and lowest. Still have to fix that. But now these 5 buttons should be done, that should be done, that should be done. So we just have to do this. All right. So while I'm going in here and I'm putting all those grades in there, while I'm putting them in, all right, I'm going to have one more global variable that I'm going to just call sum, int sum grades. It's fine. It'll set that equal to 0. That'll be the sum of all my grades. So I check for the highest, I check for the lowest, and I'm going to say sum plus equals, okay, sum plus equals grades LCV. Okay. And then finally, when I do go to this one, it'll be a message box dot show, and it'll say average grade plus sum grades divided by 10.0 m dot toString into. All right, that's a lot. That's the biggest program probably I've written all semester, and I've got to figure out why this is wrong. So application is ambiguous. It's never given me that error message before, which is interesting.
That sounds like that same error that we were talking about on my hands-on test where you had to enter that additional language at the beginning of it.
Gotcha. Okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run it. It will give me an error because that's an error. I'm going to say no, and I want to see if it's going to give me any more information here. All right, application is ambiguous reference between system Windows Forms application and, yeah, I have not seen that before. I guess you said, like you said, other than that. And it could be that I removed one of the ones here that I needed. I don't think I need this media names. I didn't put that there, the system did. Somehow, for some reason. Well, let's see if that, no, I got rid of it. All right, let's try a couple of these. So I'm going to put nothing in there. Number grade is a required field. I should have a heading there, but I don't. Text box left blank. Text box must be an integer, so it's doing all those, and it's doing the range check. And then it's blowing up. Well, that is not a good start. All right, so let's look at those in turn. I think after each one of those in here, where I put that keep going equal false, I should just say continue, because there's no sense in going on there. There is no sense in going on there. And there is no sense in going on there. All right, I'm not saying I made it better, but we're going to at least see. Now I get the number grade as required field. Still is doing the text box must not be left blank. So I might have missed one there. And it gave me an F, which it shouldn't have done. Let's see if we do put a valid grade in there, if it gives me 78. It's not even doing that. So, all right. So there's still problems, probably quite a few in this program. All right. I broke some of my rules on that you should write a little code and then test it, write a little code and then test it, and I didn't do that. So that had my continue. That had my continue. That had a continue. So that should have skipped. So if I put garbage in there, it says number grade must be an integer, and it still says text box value must be an integer. Now, the first error that it came up with there, where it said number must be an integer, that wasn't one I wrote. Number grade is a required field. I'll have to check on that one. So let's look at that. Oh, I know what that is. That is writing my error messages from these things. So this is saying that that is a required field, and I did not put any error message in there. So that is doing what it's supposed to do. So let me change this to say number grade, text box, input required. And I will use that for all of them or something like that. So that one says it's required. The next one here will say must be integer. And the last one will say, yeah, we've got must be between. And out of range. Let me run it again. Now with nothing in there, number grade input required, number grade is required field, boom. It shouldn't be going to that second one. It should have skipped, but it's also doing, you cannot leave this blank. So I think that part of it is I'm using both my way and Rankin and Murock's way of doing this, and that's on me. So is present. I don't need this number. I don't need these anymore because I'm already printing them. So I don't need that. I don't need that. I actually don't need that show message, but I'm going to keep it in there anyway. So keep going. It's false. Going is false. All right. So if I leave it blank, number grade text box input required, it's a required field. That's good, and it comes back there. If I put garbage in here, must be an integer, and it clears it. Good. Out of range, and it clears it. Good. Out of range this way. Good. That's all working. All right, now, so all of those are working. All right. Also, these are no longer disabled, so I have to disable those, and I know why, but so let's try 90. And that isn't working, so we have to fix that. The reason that these are not disabled like they should be is I should have called that inside of the form load routine. So I don't think I did. Oh, I did. Disable buttons. So when are we calling enable buttons? That's what I got to check on. Okay. Let's do this. Let's run it. Try putting in a valid grade and see what happens. Okay, these are all disabled like they should be. 100. See, that should say A, and it's not doing anything. Not getting any error. I'm not getting anything. So let's fix that. So if it makes it all the way down here, grades LCV equals that, and it should also say, I should call then calculate. I am calling calculate letter grade. Not in the right place. Calculate letter grade. Try that again. If I put in a valid value, still not doing it. It should be saying A right there. We got to figure out why. EXT letter grade equals that. So letter grade. It looks correct to me. Let's see if we're getting into this routine. Okay, in calculate letter grade, the value passed in was 0. That is actually correct. And it's a D. That's correct. Okay, when it's coming back and it's redoing it, it's just doing the same one every time. That isn't correct. I'm trying to debug this. This is what I'm going to do, just so you know. I'm going to see if I get this to work by 11 o'clock. You're welcome to watch. You're welcome to take off if you want. It's up to you. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to write two programs very quickly, and they're both similar to two of the ones that you're going to be asked to do. Between these and the ones we'll do tomorrow, they're very similar to ones that you've been asked to do for homework. So I will first write a program tomorrow, a console program that will generate 25 random numbers between 1 and 100. Once it does those, it'll sort them into ascending order. It'll find the smallest number. It'll sort them into descending order. It'll find the largest number. It'll find the sum of all the elements, and it'll find the average of all the elements. And we'll do that first as a console app, and it'll go a lot faster because I have written that and I've debugged it. And then we'll write it again as a Gui app, and again, I've written that. Neither one of them, they're both about a third as long as this one is. All right, so they're not very long at all. So we will fix those. And then I will take a look and see if there's a problem or two if we have time to do for the homework or the labs or both. And then any remaining time will be lab, and Friday will be lab. And on Friday I will email you the on Friday I will email you the pretest. All right. If and this is what's bad is if we keep getting behind, then when we get towards the stuff that gets really hard, we won't have enough time. That said, right now, what I'm probably going to end up doing is it'll be tomorrow, like I said, we'll work on a couple more problems. Friday will be lab, and I'm probably going to make Monday a lab too. Then Tuesday, I'll go over the pretest, and your chapter 8 test will be Wednesday. That's what I'm at least looking at right now. Okay, which means Thursday we might have a lot of lecture, unfortunately. All right, and then Friday of next week would be a lab. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to attempt to go through my program here and see if I can figure out why it's not generating a grade here. And when it does generate a grade, it's stuck on that grade that we just put in. Because again, the idea is when we run this, I should put in here a 50. Click calculate, it should put an F in there. All right. Then when I click, if I put another number in here and I click, so if I click clear and I put another number in there and I put in 70 and click calculate, it should give me a C there, click clear again, etc. And when I do that 10 times, then all these buttons that have been disabled should enable, and I should be able to print any one of those buttons and get the result. I think you're still there, Grant. Does what I'm saying make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I'll try to fix that by tomorrow morning, and I will put some comments in there, etc. All right, and tomorrow, like I said, we'll go through two more programs, and then I'm going to take all the ones that I've done, the one I did this morning, the one I'm working on now, and the two I will do tomorrow. I've already created a GitHub repository. I will push all four of those out there, and then we will do a couple, at least one of the homework problems and at least one of the lab problems. Okay, and I don't know, I've got to look at them to be sure. All right. And if the homework problems are ones we've already done, maybe I'll do two lab problems. We'll see. All right. So does that make sense as far as what's going on then for the rest of the week?
Yeah.
All right. So like I said, you're welcome to watch me fumble my way through here, or if you want to take off, that's totally fine also, because I'm going to keep taping. All right. And I want to keep taping until I get this thing to work, or I give up for now and then I'll come back to it later. All right. So again, it's up to you. Otherwise, I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, if anybody is still watching, and I hope that somebody is, I've gone back and I put in a bunch of comments, but the only thing that's not working, and of course it's a big thing, is it does run. But if I do come in here, let's see what happens if I try putting in a bunch of good grades, 33. See, it's supposed to be putting an F in there right now, and it's not. So something is wrong in my logic. All right. I've added a new button in here called New Program Run. This almost looks like it's looping, and that's why this is happening. So I will fix that. I'm going to stop with the taping right now. All right. And why? Just because I have to get ready for my class that starts in an hour. So I will stop taping now. I will come back to this a little bit later on tonight and see if I can fix it. Okay. Thank you.